weakens the risk, how vulnerable we are as a community or as an individual, and of course what sort of shocks we need to sort of face really regularly in India, especially in developing countries like India. So if we'll go back to the FAO for United Nations recent 2013-14 sort of paper, what they have mentioned is that most of the developing countries, especially facing this extreme climatic disaster, either in form of cyclone, earthquake, or in form of drought. Now we are having coronavirus. So, as I said, this particular issue is in developing countries. Why? The answer to this question is mostly in developing countries, the disaster management sector is deprived due to various infrastructural and technological issues. So, if you see in India, almost in every year, disaster occurs and used to devastate people and community or individual. So now it says that we are really vulnerable to all these climate-related disasters. So it is happening due to various climate change, and there are several determinants and factors which are responsible for this particular disaster. Now, if we compare with the several sort of disaster that occurred earlier, it's the plague in 18th century, 19th century Spanish flu. Now we're having coronavirus. Mostly, India faces this problem due to three important factors. Number one is we are having high population density. The cities we are having high population density, going to face this particular issues more than the cities having less population density. Number two is we are having low sanitation facility. And the third and important factor is we are having chronic poverty. So, as I said, the poverty, chronic, I'm talking about here, the chronic poverty and malnourishment actually weakens our immune system. And mostly this particular issues, that is the coronavirus, what is going on right now, and we are all facing this tough period. We are facing this problem because of issues, as I've already highlighted, that the important problem we are having right now is the reverse migration. So, disproportionate share of this particular coronavirus distress is mostly felt of has been falling on this poor working class. Now, this reverse migration as an issue, if we take an example, if I'll take my state into perspective with Odisha, we have all the cities more or less we have in early March or April, we're having a green zone cities. The moment the migration, the people came from Surat, from Kolkata, Madras, and from Bangalore and Bombay, then the cases, number of active cases has increasing day by day. So what I'm saying here is why this particular problem is occurring. People are in search of employment. People are in search of job. They used to visit the different cities, and when they want to come back, of course, they will bring all these problems. Mostly, this pandemic occurs in the globalized cities, and then again it actually spread over to east, southeast, and northeast, and as well as the western cities like Bombay, Bangalore, and Chennai, and of course, we are having right now in Kolkata. So as I said, this problem is there actually. You have to take care of it. How will actually minimize this particular risk? How will minimize this disaster? So as I said, as predicted by FAO in 2013-14, that the disaster management sector is completely deprived in India, not only in India, mostly in developing countries. Why? Because we have so many issues to tackle with. Number one is we have poverty and inequality issues. So this issue we are actually from the five-year plan onwards, or from the 5-year plan onwards, we are looking at this particular issues, how to solve, how to be a self-sufficient economy, how to sort of tackle with this food insecurity. Now, with all this background, I'm going to tell you few things about my PPT, that how this disaster occurs, what are the different phases of disaster, then how we are going to tackle all this disaster, what are the special knowledge, education, awareness we need as an individual or as an researcher or as a social scientist. Then followed by we're going to give you some experiences from the earlier disaster, like we have 1999 super cyclone in Odisha, and of course we have series of disaster in Odisha like we have Lane, Hudhud, and then of course recently we have Amphan. It's devastated West Bengal and mostly coastal part of Odisha. India and Bangladesh, well put together, more than close to 100 people have died. So now what I'm going to tell you exactly that what we could learn from the earlier disaster. And of course, the Odisha is the best example because it's the disaster capital. Every year we have drought, flood-like situation, we have cyclone. So now, of course, the best model I'm going to tell you that how you're going to mitigate. And of course, if you want to tell exactly that what kind of empirical analysis also you can do it later on by using all these factors or determinants that also you can get. So right now I'm going to present before all of you is basically. Is it visible, PPT?
No, Ashish, not yet.
Okay, just 1 minute.
Not yet visible. Hey, Baba, either can or present.
Now it's visible.
Just a minute, Ashish. No, not yet, not yet, not yet.
Hello, Nirupam
Yes.
sir. Hello, myself Jugal speaking. Ashish sir,
Yes.
when you present it, don't minimize the screen.
Okay.
You don't minimize, you just go to the Google and there you present. If you minimize, it will not be visible to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ashish, I think that is what it's the right thing. So I think you have to do.
Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, take your time. Sure.
It's a humble request to Kalyan sir. Please don't share your screen.
Dr. Kalyan Sarkar, it is a humble request. Kindly don't present it because our speaker needs to present. Dr. Kalyan Sarkar, if you're listening to us, kindly don't present. Our speaker needs to present. So your cooperation is solicited, highly solicited. Dr. Kalyan Sarkar, kindly stop presenting. So it will become Sagarika Naik, please don't present.
Yeah, there are so many people are presenting. So
No, please don't present Sagarika Naik. Excluding the speaker, nobody should be presenting. Excluding the speaker, nobody should be presenting. Otherwise, we will have to remove them from the this webinar. So, can you present? Can you do now, Ashish?
Yeah, I'm already ready. Is it okay? Visible?
No,
Yes,
not
sir.
yet visible. Not yet.
Visible?
Yeah, now you are visible. Perfect. Now you are visible.
Is
now
okay?
you can present. Yeah, now you can present.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So as I said, I have given a brief background about the kind of disaster we are facing as a developing country like India, and of course, since we are most of the states basically living in the coastal areas like Odisha, West Bengal, and we are facing regularly this cyclonic storms and drought, flood, and all these issues. So that's why I thought I'm going to present this particular topic before all of you, that how to mitigate and adapt for this climate-related disaster, especially at the backdrop of COVID-19, because it is very much related with our experience, our past knowledge, our past education to handle all these kind of disaster. Now, what I'm going to do is basically, as I said, the disaster science is related with these factors. So I'm going to highlight each one of them. So it is important to know, understand what are the risks and who are vulnerable actually with the disaster. Now, as I said, there are three types of situation that occurs in life, in everybody's life. There is risk we have. We have another situation is called uncertainty, and the third one is the certainty. Certainty is the situation we can easily predict it with 100% probability. That we can easily tell that okay, this is going to happen definitely. So therefore, we are certain. So here, where the probability we are assigning is equal to 1. Now, what will happen in the uncertain situation? We cannot assign anything.
Ashish, hold on. Ashish, just a minute. Are you presenting?
Yes.
Because your presentation is not visible to others. It is your face is visible.
Okay.
Your face
I
is
think
visible.
what to do then? Slides? I don't know.
So you have to present now. You have to present your screen. So you have to present the window. So there is a
Okay.
present now option. You have opened the laptop, no?
Uh-huh.
So present now option is there. Just on
Is it
the yeah. Now it's visible. Now it's visible.
okay? Okay.
Perfect.
So as I said, it is important to understand these factors that as a part of the disaster science. So there are three important situations, as I already told you, that the risk we have, and we have certainty cases and uncertain situation. Uncertain situation or uncertainty is a situation where you cannot predict anything. Mostly the natural disaster or the issues like coronavirus, these are coming under this uncertainty. So we are not sure exactly what is going to happen actually tomorrow. So therefore, there is another situation called certainty, which we can predict easily. That means we are going to say that we are here, we are presenting before you. So this is a certain situation where you can assign probability as one. And another situation is risk, which risk is the situation where you can assign some chance factor or some probability. You can tell that, okay, there is a high chance or there is a low chance that the coronavirus will affect Dr. Senapati or whoever may be. So that means the chance factor is there. So therefore, we are living in three types of situation called risk, uncertainty, and certainty. Certainty is the situation we have complete idea, complete knowledge. Uncertainty in this situation, we don't have any idea, any knowledge, any information. This is a kind of shock. It's like an external shock. And risk is the situation where you can assign some probability that whether I am going to be or I'm going to be affected due to this corona or not. So there are certain issues related to this and vulnerability. Now, when the question is who are actually vulnerable with this disaster? Now, especially when we'll talk about the vulnerability, as I said, the mostly the disproportionate share of this current pandemic has been fallen on these poor and marginal people. Why? Because they are going outside in search of job. Their exposure is very high. So high exposure is an important factor. That means you are vulnerable because of the exposure. So if we're coming back to the IPCC definition of vulnerability, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So who are vulnerable exactly? There are three important elements of vulnerability actually. One is exposure. That means the system is exposed to certain variation, certain climatic variation or certain disaster. And another point is basically sensitivity. Who are sensitive to this particular disaster? That means, of course, if you'll see this pandemic, going back the international experience, mostly people coming under the old age people or even people who are below 7 years or 8 years age, they are actually more vulnerable. And people who have already having some kind of respiratory diseases or problems, they are actually more vulnerable. So vulnerability, as I said, there are three elements of according to the
Ashish,
IPCC. Yes.
Ashish, just your presentation is not again visible. Just
Oh,
your
okay.
presentation is not visible.
So it is
It
visible
is
now.
visible, no?
Yes, sir. So Newcom, sir, you just pin it to screen.
Okay, I have to pin it to the screen. Okay, thank you, Ashish. Carry on.
Okay. So as I said, these issues are there. We have. Is it visible, everyone? Hello.
Yes, sir. It is visible. You
Okay.
can go on, sir.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. So as I said, who are vulnerable? I'm going back to the definition of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. As I said, the system which is exposed to certain climatic variation, they are actually more vulnerable. And the number two is basically who are sensitive to this particular virus or disaster. So they are also vulnerable. The third element of this IPCC definition of vulnerability is adaptive capacity. Who can adapt better to actually take care of all this disaster? So as I said, if we'll club these three factors, that is exposure, sensitivity, and third one is adaptive capacity, then you have a complete definition of vulnerability as per the IPCC recommendation. As I said, there are different variety of methods of measuring vulnerability. We can measure vulnerability as expected poverty. So looking at the chronic poverty or malnutrition, you can also measure vulnerable who are actually vulnerable to this particular disaster. As I said, mostly poor and marginal people are actually facing problems. Those who are migrated labor, These are, as I said, the reverse migration in cities is an important factor. We are actually vulnerable to this particular COVID-19 problem. So as I said, there are measurement issues. So how you can measure, vulnerability as expected poverty. As I said, you can take poverty as an important factor, or as per the different definition of poverty, you can measure it. Another one is called, another kind of issue is we have vulnerability as low expected utility. That's another type of kind of measurement of vulnerability, where you have to take care of the consumption and income in two important factors into sight, that who are consuming how much and what is this level of income. So looking at all these issues also, you can see that whether there is a loss of consumption or there is a loss of income or not to a particular community or particular individual. There also you can measure that who are vulnerable to this particular disaster. And the third type of definition of vulnerability is basically the VER. We call it as vulnerability as uninsured risk. Basically, exposure to uninsured risk means this is a post-disaster loss calculation. That means who are already, you have, if when you have already affected by the disaster, you are going to calculate the what is the exact amount of post-disaster loss. So first two approach, that is as expected poverty as well as low expected, they are the part of your pre-disaster loss calculation. And the third one is the final one is the post-disaster calculation of vulnerability. That means when you're talking about in coronavirus, who are the population, who are the community are vulnerable, you can take three different measures to measure it, vulnerability. That which are the sections which are vulnerable, that you can use the poverty, expected poverty as one approach, or also you can use low expected utility another approach. And final one, once this COVID used to decline in our cities or in our country, you can also measure the third approach, which is called post-disaster loss estimation. That means what happened due to coronavirus, who are actually affected due to this particular disaster. So this is one the idea about risk and vulnerability. Second important issue is in disaster science we have what difference between covariate and idiosyncratic shocks. So what are the covariate shocks we have? Covariate shocks is a type of shock is actually felt by everyone in a particular geographical area. So if I'll take, okay, there is a flood-like situation or a drought-like situation in a particular geographical area, definitely all the household living in or residing in that particular geographical area are going to be affected due to flood or drought. So covariate risk, as I said, will be felt by all. Now coronavirus is an important case here. Is basically a covariate shocks. The covariate shocks is if it is affected in a particular zone, you are making it as a containment zone. In containment zones, there is a high chance that everyone will be feeling the same kind of stress, that whether or what is the chance of getting a positive coronavirus case. So if we'll talk about idiosyncratic shocks is basically an individual specific shock. For example, if there is a house damage due to Fani or due to Amphan that happened in just before 1 year or even before 1 month, Amphan and Fani. So if your house is damaged already, or if there is a fire, or if there is a theft-like situation, that means, or if there is an illness or accidents to you. So this is a very much individual specific shock. It is felt by you only, not by everybody. As I said in the earlier case in March, in the first week of March, we have corona cases, but there are very few people who have actually traveled from outside, especially from Italy or from China, used to have these corona cases. So we used to find in every day in testing, we used to find 1 or 2 cases of corona. So that means that is happened to only one person, not all. Now when there is a community transmission, now it become a covariate issue. So covariate versus idiosyncratic shock is a very important dimension of disaster science. Everybody should try to understand what is a covariate. It has to be felt by everyone in a particular geographical area. And idiosyncratic shocks is important dimension is actually felt by an individual or a particular individual. Now coming to the third aspect of disaster, we have natural versus man-made disaster. Natural disaster, as I said, it is very difficult to predict. It's actually beyond your imagination, beyond your control. It is going to affect, and every year we are facing in coastal states that every year we are having drought, flood, we are having cyclone, hailstorm, and all these issues. Now we are having coronavirus. So these are all natural type of disaster. And there is another disaster we used to call is a man-made disaster. Man-made disaster, it occurs due to deforestation. So deforestation is important aspect of man-made disaster. And of course, we used to talk about green growth, environmental sustainability, biodiversity conservation. So now who is going to pay the environmental cost? Of course, we are, because we are actually wasting. So these are a kind of disaster we have. That is, one is natural versus man-made. So two types of disaster we have. Now coming to the next idea, that is, what are the strategies we have so far in disaster science? We have ex-ante mechanism and ex-post mechanism. Now, what do you mean by this ex-ante mechanism? Ex-ante mechanism is a precautionary mechanism. That means you have to take this mechanism before a disaster occurs in your community or in your area. Suppose, as I said, suppose there is an announcement by your government that cyclone Amphan going to happen in your city, or going to hit, let's say, Sundarban on, let's say, next week of this time. Now you have to take some kind of precautionary measure. You have to purchase some necessary durables, consumer durables, and some basic materials for your sustenance. Now, if we'll talk about the expo strategy is basically related to the post disaster. That means when already the disaster already occur, what kind of mechanism you're going to apply? Of course, you have to going to reconstruct, you have to going to rehabilitate, resettle, and all these issues are coming under expo strategy. People used to take loan from others, from their friends, from their relatives to manage their life or standard of living. So these are coming under expo strategy. Ex-ante strategy is basically, like I said, precautionary measure. When there is a virus, when we heard that there is a virus in China, so we used to purchase masks, sanitizer, and all that. So because these are all precautionary measures, we do not know when this virus will going to occur. And once the virus is already occurred in your city or in your community, what kind of mechanism are going to take thereafter? So ex-ante versus ex-post strategy are very important dimension in disaster science. Now the last one we are going to discuss is mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation is very much related to the prevention. Suppose, for example, I'm taking health insurance. Why? Because I want to be very risk-free, so that if I'll take insurance, there is a high chance that if something happens to me, I can claim it. So mitigation is an important dimension where you can insure yourself before a disaster. That means the preventional mechanism or the insurance part. And this insurance part, you have to do it before the disaster, not the after disaster. Now these days, there are so many insurance companies. They are also insuring a house. So house insurance is also there. You can insure your house. You can pay a certain level of premium. You can insure it for a possible disaster, earthquake, or something like that. Of course, you have to pay a high premium. It all depends on the age of the sort of house. And the adaptation strategy is basically a long-run mechanism. This is not at all a short-run mechanism. As I said, since childhood, my parents used to tell me that before you're going to play cricket or anything outside, you have to wash your hand. You have to clean your cloth, something like that. So these are kind of adaptation we used to do it since our childhood. It's not a one night, or it's like a 2 day or 1 week kind of strategy. Adaptation strategy is a long run strategy. So as I said, coronavirus actually taught us so many lessons actually. So how you can clean yourself, how you maintain your hygiene, how you can sort of increase your immunity level. What are the food items you have to eat regularly? As people have suggested, or medical professional people have suggested, you have to eat garlic regularly. You have to take one lemon regularly. So there are so many. You can take honey a little bit like that. So that means you cannot do it within 1 month or 2 months. You have to do it for a regular period of time. Suppose, let's say 5 years, 10 years. If you continue with all this, then you can adapt to a particular kind of virus or disaster. So adaptation, as I said, is a long-run mechanism. It's not at all a short-run mechanism. Coping mechanism is basically a short-run mechanism. That means how I can cope a particular disaster. So coping is basically a short-run mechanism, whereas adaptation is a long-run mechanism. Everybody has to adapt. And of course, as I said, you have to take a minimum 10 years or 5 years of kind of adaptation mechanism. There are several determinants we are going to discuss later on. Now, next is, what are the phases of disaster management we have? There are, as I said, there are different phases. Then I have listed out here. And first, I'm going to tell you the pre-disaster phase. In pre-disaster phase, we need to prepare ourselves. So preparedness is an important dimension of disaster management. So whenever we're talking about a certain virus that occur right now, how much we are prepared, how much we are actually prepared for that particular problem or particular shock. So preparedness is important aspect of your management. Now, number two is prevention. As I said, what are the prevention mechanism you have taken? That means prevention, as I said, you have purchased your mask, or sanitizer, and of course, you are taking care of your health. Regularly, you are eating garlic or lemon. You are taking vitamin C tablets. So that means you are preventing yourself. So prevention is again another part which you can do it before the disaster. Right. And mitigation, I already told you what are the mitigation mechanisms. As I said, you have to insure yourself as a health insurance, all these things you are going to do it before a disaster, before any disease, you have to insure yourself. So health insurance, all these examples are coming under this mitigation, and that can be done before a disaster, not after the disaster. And disaster phase, what you're going to do, you have to respond. You have to respond quickly to a particular disaster. Suppose, for example, in a particular colony where you are living, and it is already declared by the government is a containment zone, because there are highest number of cases for weak cases that is coming under. So therefore, what you're going to do is basically you have to respond to those kind of stuff. Of course, mentally you will feel very stressed. Depression will come that, oh, in my area, in my colony, several households, so several people have already tested positive. How am I going to respond it? So response, quickly respond to a particular disaster is actually the phase we are having right now. It's a disaster phase. So what we are having right now in India or in even in Assam, in West Bengal, whatever cities we are living in, we have to respond it. The moment our zone, our area is declared as the containment zones or buffer zone as per the government of India, sort of official, recommendation, we have to quickly respond it. And as I said, once the disaster will die, once the disaster die out, whatever going to do is basically the recovery and reconstruction. You have to recover. As I said, there are if you see the government of India website, since India has done a fantastic job in basically dealing with this coronavirus, you have so many cases. Let's number of active cases. You have also number of cases which have recovered. So recovery is an important case. That means disaster already occurred to you, and how you can recover from that disaster. Of course, as I said, you have to stay quarantine in quarantine center, minimum 14 days or 20 days. Then the doctor will give you a kind of the kind of medication will continue for a while, and then once you recover and once you test negative, then they will allow you to go, right? So these are all the recovery steps. And of course, if I'll take the cyclone example, once Amphan has devastated West Bengal, Bangladesh, and mostly coastal part of Odisha, then how your government, how the NGOs or the policymakers, whoever are working in the disaster management sector, basically the disaster management authority, how they are recovering this particular disaster. And reconstruction is also another part. You have to reconstruct. If you suppose due to cyclone, if your house is already damaged, how you can reconstruct it, right, immediately. Suppose, for example, when your body is already affected by the virus and you have to recover, now the next idea is how you can reconstruct yourself, how you can again increase your immunity level so that in future you should not have any kind of virus. So these are the phases of actually disaster management. Everybody has to face all these dimension of disaster management: preparedness, prevention, mitigations that you have to do in pre-disaster phase, and response, you have to respond quickly, and the last two are basically you have to do it after the disaster. Now again, as I said, disaster management or disaster science is very much linked with these issues. Education, you have to educate yourself, you have to aware people, and you have to have some idea about the disaster history. Suppose, as I said, there are certain regions in coastal states. It's, it's every year they are affected by the cyclone. For example, see in Odisha there is a Gopalpur, you have Ganjam. Every year used to be affected by this particular cyclonic stuff. And of course, as I said, some coastal districts we have like Kotak, we have Khurda, and we have also Baleshwar, Bhadrak, and all these districts which are very much close to West Bengal. They are severely affected by this cyclone every year. not the other districts where in Western Odisha, like Sambalpur, Balangir, and all this. So if you take into consideration the disaster history is very important for a researcher, social scientist point of view. You have to understand. So as I said, the awareness about emergency situation is very important. If you are not aware about what is happening, whether there is a coming, there is a cyclone or not, whether there is a virus which is coming in your way, but if you are not aware about this particular situation, then we are going to be affected much. So therefore, awareness is very important factor in your adaptive capacity. Now, second one is the technical and managerial capacity of the concerned government. Suppose if you are staying in Assam, what Assam government is taking, kind of what are the mechanisms, managerial capacity, technical capacity. These are important dimensions. As I said, mostly if you read the FAO report, developing economy, basically India, is used to face this extreme set of climatic shock due to infrastructure and technological issues. And if you compare with the other developed countries, not in case of coronavirus, but for other disaster, they used to sort of cope with the disaster. We are facing this problem because we have lack of technical and managerial capacity of our government personnel. So this is the important dimension we need to know is the technical aspect and managerial capacity of a particular government or a particular organization. And as I said, installation of disaster warning system. This is very important set of factor. As I said, the warning system is very important. If you take the example of 99 cyclone, after 99 cyclone, Odisha government has actually established several radars to give some kind of signals before a cyclone. Now, during this Amphan time, also 2 days or 3 days back, we used to get some information in Gopalpur, what will happen, in Balesur, in Bhadrak. There are several places they have actually installed this disaster warning system. So installation of disaster warning system is very, very important if you want to really know the disaster, whether it is occurring or not. And hazard zone mapping. Hazard zone mapping, as I said, it is another important aspect. You have to, again, every year you have to actually point out that which are the important areas or districts which are actually heavily affected by the cyclone or by the earthquake. We used to have earthquake zones. Suppose the area I am living right now is very much close to airport. So if we'll if we'll go to this history of set of earthquakes and all that, the people used to say the areas which are actually very much close to the airport are prone to this earthquake. So hazard zone mapping is a very important determinant, and it has to be done by the government or by the authority. Here we are having Bhubaneswar Development Authority, that is BDA. BDA is doing all this hazard zone mapping. So you have to map it. That what are the areas you have in your area that is earthquake zone area. So that means which are the areas which are very much close to airport are sort of prone to this earthquake. And as I said, another aspect is hazard forecasting. You have to forecast the hazard properly. And we have several organizations. We have several disaster management offices. We have also sort of IMD Pune, that is Indian Meteorological Department Pune, who used to forecast the hazard. So hazard forecasting, if your forecasting is good, then you can easily cope with the sound. If your forecasting is bad, definitely you're going to affect. In 99 cyclone, this is the best example I can give you from my own childhood experience. We could not able to forecast well. We used to, the government used to tell the sort of the kind of people that okay, there will be a slight wind. Wind will be like up to 90 kilometer per hour or something like that, and we're not going to be affected very much. And only the people living in the coastal areas or people who are living in the sea area, sea level, then there is a chance of sort of some issues. Otherwise, they will not be affected much. But what happened as per the US sort of calculation, that it is coming under a Hurricane 3. Hurricane 3 is more than, if you have more than 240 per kilometer wind fall. So that's why, as I said, hazard forecasting is very important. Now we are having IMD Pune, and we have also local agencies, regional departments, which can forecast the hazard well. Now the important aspect again is the construction of disaster resistant houses. After 99 cyclone, I can tell you from my experience when I used to visit my village, there are several now disaster resistant houses, cyclone houses. Of course, whether the government is using in a proper way or not, that's a different issue. But we have our disaster resistant houses in every districts, basically coastal districts, Ganjam, Bhadrak, Baleshwar, Kotak, Khurda. We have cyclone resistant houses. So construction of disaster resistant houses is also very important. Now the next is provision of assets are subsidized. So assets, whatever the assets you have. So in people living in the rural areas, they have livestock as an asset. People have agricultural dependence because mostly in India, 60 to 70% people depend on the agriculture sector as their livelihood. So how you can provide all these important assets at a subsidized rate, basic sort of, as I said, consumer durables during disaster. Sorry. Now the next idea is communication. Effective communication with various stakeholders is very important. It's very important. You have to educate, you have to aware people regularly that the disaster is coming. Now in the coronavirus, we have several containment zones. We have several sort of schools or even colleges that is actually coming under this containment or COVID-19 hospital. And you have to communicate with the people every day, evening time or morning time, that okay, these many cases we have tested and we are going to have this contract testing. And once we do the contract testing, we'll get a proper idea about the number of active positive cases. So communications through various stakeholders is very important in disaster time. And the last one is information management. As I said, how you manage the information, very important. Let's not see in these days we are using WhatsApp and all these Facebooks and all these social media. There are so many fake news every day people used to face. Fake news that the cyclone will come and will hit in Balangir. Fake news that the cyclone will come and hit Assam. but but the official website is saying that no, cyclone is not going to affect Assam. It's going to affect only West Bengal. See, during this Amphan time, several WhatsApp news used to come that okay, in your area there will be massive rainfall. The cyclone will hit in your area. So as I said, you have to avoid all that. During coronavirus time, also you have so many messages, so many humors. This person got affected. This person got positive. This person got or this person came from Dubai, so there is a high chance that will be affected. So this information management is very important. We have to inform to the right authority regarding the disaster. That is very important. Now, in my slide, as I said, why what we can learn from Odisha. As I said, why Odisha? Basically, as I said, the Odisha is the disaster capital of India. Every year we used to face severe cyclonic storm, drought, flood, or even earthquake and all these issues. And of course, we are now facing coronavirus. So, what lesson we can learn? As I said, if we'll see the 99 super cyclone, government of Odisha, what they have done, that they have actually done basically the kind of evacuation, or the, as I said, the cyclone resistant houses, and they have built all this, and their preparedness was very high. So with decades of this preparation, intervention, with effective communication with civil society and NGOs, this particular state now has received praise from various organizations, including the United Nations. Basically, if I'll highlight some sort of disaster, earlier disaster, that is the objective of my lecture. In 2013, while in Raktal, the Indian coast, government of Odisha undertook largest ever evacuation, shifting 11 lakh people into safety. So this is the best example that we learned from 99. We could not able to do the evacuation in super cyclone of 99 because of the misinformation. We are not informed. Information management was not there. So therefore, we have lost more than 10,000 people officially. This is the official sort of record. I got it from various newspapers as well as from the websites of disaster management website. So this is the official record. But as I said, there are more than 10,000 people who have died in 1995. So this experience helped Odisha to evacuate or shifted more than 11 lakh people during violent time. And as I said, the death toll was only 21 during violent time. Next year in 2014, we have also Hudud, and the death toll was contained to just 2. Just you see the declining trend, and you just see the increasing trend of evacuation. So preparedness, as I said from my earlier slide, preparedness, response, and then, as I said, the information management. These are important dimensions of disaster that you can minimize risk, minimize property, minimize human loss, minimize casualty. So all these are important dimensions. Now, as I said, 1999, after 99, Odisha State Disaster Management Authority, that is OSDM, much before the Disaster Act in 2005, they have constituted, and it's the first disaster management authority center established in India, perhaps in the world, given its scale of operation right now, after 99 experience. So this is the idea that, of course, if I'll talk about now coronavirus, Odisha is the first state who have done this lockdown system. And again, as I said, weekend lockdown. So as I said, these are certain experience. Why Odisha is doing all that? Because they have already experienced the disaster regularly. So since they have already experienced the disaster, so they are planning better way. So now people used to say now Odisha thinks today and all other states are thinking tomorrow. Why it is so? Because due to our earlier past experience of disaster and due to our own set of management authority that we have already established in prior to 1999. As I said, in Amphan case, we can link with Amphan with COVID-19 because it happened during COVID-19 time. Some history I took it from the various newspaper. It actually killing at least more than 84 people officially across India and Bangladesh. And as I said, this storm is the fast super cyclone since 1999. Coronavirus restriction have been hindering, of course, and social distancing measures made mass evacuation more difficult. This is also a reality. You cannot do evacuation because of this COVID-19 issue. So the COVID-19 problem is there, and during this time, Amphan kept. So West Bengal faced this particular problem of evacuating people to a safe place or the cyclone-resistant house. And as I said, West Bengal Chief Minister also said the devastation in Kolkata was a bigger disaster than COVID-19. And mostly the districts were affected is the West Bengal, South, North, 24 Parganas, and East Medinapur. And why I'm saying that these two disasters in conjunction, what they have done is basically they have faced, they have actually, created problem for the administrator to maintain both issues, evacuation as well as social distancing measures. Because once the entrance is blocked, because it is a COVID hotspot and containment zone, it is of course immersed in flood waters which came with the cyclone. So these two problems are very much linked with each other, Amphan and COVID-19. And of course, as I said, management is very, very difficult. Disaster management, when we're talking about disaster management point of view, Amphan and COVID-19 created a severe problem to the West Bengal to manage itself. Now, as I said, what you can do to adapt better in long run, you have to do a scenario plan. What's the scenario planning? That what is happening actually really? What is happening? And you have to take into consideration certain disaster history, and you have to make it a plan. Okay, if this is the case, I'm going to plan it for the next year. Let's say, for example, right now, since there is a coronavirus, for a business person, for a entrepreneur, you have to make a planning. Otherwise, you're going to face a lot of issues. Marketing plan, as I said, you have to market your product. You cannot sit in your home. Even though there is a work from home, you have to market your product, market yourself. As I said, there are so many webinars. You have to market yourself. What your university is doing during this critical phase or challenging phase. Third important dimension, we have to make effective training and skill development. This is another important issue. You have to train your people. As I said, in most of the universities, the teachers were not at all, sort of trained to teach in, in online platform. They are also facing problems. So training and skill development is important dimension. You have to make it constantly if you want to adapt in a better way. Enhance capacity of agricultural households or farmers in climate smart villages. So as I said, during this, since disaster is coming regularly, you have to enhance the capacity of farmers. Mostly we are living in this climate smart villages. Mostly people living in irrigated or in sort of rain-fed regions. You have to enhance their capacity, and you have to sort of constantly aware them to make this climate-resistant crop, to cultivate climate-resistant crop. So enhancing capacity of agriculture household in climate smart villages is another adaptation strategy. You can do it after COVID. Effective communications to stakeholders. I already told you that you have to communicate regularly to your various stakeholders. Then, if you want to manage properly, educational and cultural transformation is an important dimension right now. As I said, right now you have to shift yourself from a physical, sort of, interaction to now online interaction. We are having virtual lecture series, right? So therefore, you have to transform yourself. You have to transform yourself. You have to make PPTs. You have to, sort of produce some research papers, online materials. You have to send to your students. Culturally, also you have to transform yourself. The kind of lifestyle you are living now, you have to change because you want to adapt for the future disaster. So educational and cultural transformation is also another aspect. As I said, economic reactivation. Reactivation is also another important thing. You cannot simply, sort of say that you are going to do lockdown forever. No. See, you have to reactivate your economy. Otherwise, the GDP will be very low and people are going to die. Mostly the poor and marginal people will face problems so when there is no employment opportunity in other sectors, and most of the business sector or informal sector people who are working in unorganized sector, they are facing this problem. So economic reactivation is the important thing we are going to do. And as I said, this coronavirus is going to stay with you. You have to do it. You have to reactivate your economy. Territorial strengthening is another important aspect. In coronavirus case, you have to strengthen your territory. Not only in this particular virus, in future other virus also, you have to strengthen your territory. And that is also in between. In COVID-19, we have problems with China. We are also facing a war-like situation, and we are also now in favor of banning all these Chinese apps and all that. So territorial strengthening is important dimension. You have to do it, and you know to adopt better. So as I said, when people came from the sort of from Italy or from China, we have to stop somewhere. We have to make this contract tracing where they are actually. But this is the important thing, territorial strengthening. Food security, as I said, is an important dimension you have to do after disaster or before disaster. You have to, if you want to adapt properly, sufficient sort of food security is important aspect. Green growth is very much related to the environmental sustainability, and as I said, biodiversity conservation. You have to reduce the pollution level. Now, the only positive thing that came from this coronavirus that we are getting this environmental sustainability issues. Basically, we can able to conserve this biodiversity in a better way due to coronavirus. Since we have weekend lockdowns, we have shut down even in some areas in containment zones. So the frequency or the traveling is now less. Of course, use of this motor vehicle and of course the other things are less. So therefore, we can achieve this green growth in a better way if we can adopt properly. And strengthening the last part is area-based, locally led, and integrated programming approaches. This approach you have to make it. If you want to fight with the covariate shocks, you have to strengthen your geographical area, and you have to find out a local leader, and you have to make approaches programming in an integrated, sustainable manner. Then you can cope any such virus in future. I hope I have done justice to the topic. And if you have some questions, we can discuss later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashish, for having such a nice presentation. And actually, to be very precise, what you have said that, if I speak as an audience, that information is very critical. That information should be available in a transparent manner, and it should also be available at the appropriate time. That is the first one. And secondly, you need to also to be prepared for all the eventualities, because COVID-19 has unraveled the situations which was unthinkable even just few months back. Let's say on the New Year's Eve, we could not have imagined even in our worst dreams that these things can happen. So I think what Ashish has spoken is very relevant. And at the backdrop of this pandemic, it becomes even more critical that we should now stress on all the points which Ashish has discussed. So I would now like to put the this thing open for discussion. So I already have 2 questions. So these 2 questions, the first question, Ashish, has been put by Sandeep Satpathy. Okay. So the question is this, that cyclone Umpun affects agriculture very badly, but proper government benefits yet not received. So how farmer can get immediate benefit from government? Why direct benefit transfer to farmer impossible within 7 days with appropriate market prices of the particular crops.
Okay. Can I answer right now?
Yes, you can answer. Carry on.
Yeah, as I said, a question regarding the agriculture sector. Of course, it affected mostly. If you take the reports of FAO and other IPCC report, uh, more than sort of 35 billions US billion, dollar billion used to we used to loss every year. If we'll consider the agriculture sector, you know, because why we are facing this problem, because we are living in such a sort of society or economy where our dependence on weather is very high. Now the question is related to, as I said, why this immediate sort of thing has not been arranged by the government. See, this is up to the government actually. As I said, I have given examples of Odisha government and their kind of strategy, management, and all that. How they have recovered, how they have prepared themselves, how they have responded to a particular disaster. It is up to a particular demand, sort of a government or particular authority. They have to decide. They have to quickly visit the disaster-prone area. They have to quickly, sort of interact with the people who have affected basically the crop loss and all that. And again, they have to, evaluate. As I said, the post-disaster loss calculation is very important. As I said, you have to first identify who are the persons who are actually affected by this particular disaster. Once you identify that, I can give you an experience of the post-disaster honey calculation in Odisha. What we have done is basically, I was there as a part of that, but later on I actually escaped from that particular panel. From a little experience, I can share you that we used to calculate the number of trees that uprooted due to cyclone, the number of crops that actually affected, or the kind of number of houses that damaged due to cyclone. So this calculation is very important, and this has to be done with the interaction of the agricultural extension officer. The extension officer should go visit, and of course the secretary of of a particular district, you have to go and visit and talk with your kind of stakeholders, and then you have to give a proper estimation that this is the disaster law, set of estimation, post disaster estimation. And then again you can once you do that, and of course once you maintain the record, official record of the persons who are affected or the crop loss done, then you can sort of send the monetary help or the kind of remuneration. You can do that later on, or compensation. And as I said, the compensation mechanism has to be very fast. In India, mostly it's not, and it's not happening. Why? Because there are so many bureaucratic control. Mostly there are so many administrative problems, and the file moves very slowly from one sort of district to another district, from one government office to another government office. That's why this process is very slow. Now, since we are having everything in online mode, why not transfer money immediately to the farmer's account? So, of course, this is a very important question that you have asked. That, as I said, this is all about the interest of a particular government, a particular authority, and how they are actually estimating how they are calculating the post disaster loss. And once you identify everything, once you identify the vulnerability section or vulnerability person, then you can easily do all this compensation later on. Okay, so any other question? Hello.
Hello, Ashish sir. Hello.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
I'm sharing the screen which contain all the questions. So can you, is it visible to you?
yeah, somewhat.
Yeah.
I can answer the question posed by Jyotirmoy.
Yeah, Jyotirmoy Sharma.
That to overcome, yes, to stabilize it, which policy measure will be most effective? Okay, monetary or fiscal. See, that's what we have to. The government has to decide. And see, as an economist, people used to say, right now the government, what they have done, they have cut down some kind of salary of some person. They're going to tell that, okay, after 3 months or after 4 months, they're going to give you money. So fiscal side, you can take that, increased taxation and all that, and pour some money and all that. So that means it's all depends on the kind of particular set of authority or kind of economics to decide. But as I said, monetary policy has its own benefit and limitation, and a fiscal policy also has its own benefit and limitation. To stabilize economy right now, as I said, we cannot stabilize right now. It will take some time, and again we have to wait once this virus die out from our country or from our state, then we can see that which policy measures is being very effective. Right now, government is doing some physical mechanism, so cutting down some kind of increasing tax and all that. Now people have demanded that why you are increasing price of petrol, even though the international price of this petrol or diesel is very low for barrels. So why you are increasing price? Of course, as I said, if you are doing lockdown, 3 months lockdown, and government has to earn something, right? Where government will earn? Of course, the two things. One is fuel, another one is you have liquor. The huge demand for liquor, opening of liquor, sort of shops and all that. So as I said, this mechanism the government has to manage. Of course, how they can stabilize economy, how can they can sort of increase their receipt and how they can spend it later on. And another question, as I said, yes, which is a better strategy between adaptation, mitigation for climate in this natural disaster? As I said, these are all linked with this. Adaptation is a better, of course, because this is a long-run mechanism. As I said, since childhood, if you sort of manage, if you'll if you'll increase your immunity, then you can sort of easily cope with any kind of virus. So that means, as I said, adaptation is always a better mechanism than any other short-run mechanism. So exam mechanism people used to do to sort of cope with immediately, but adaptation is, as I said, is a long-run mechanism, and you have to take you have to take yourself as at least 5 years or 10 years or even 15 years to adapt properly to any kind of virus or any disaster, any certain problems. So for me, is adaptation is very important. Any other questions?
Yeah, next question is that of Kaivalyapati.
The basically indicates to us psychological impact of disaster, unexpected macroeconomic, that is, in the light of developments related to how do you see the psychological impact of pandemic now? Okay. See, this psychological impact will be there, as I said, now if you see the behavioral economics side, we are all, including you and me, we are already in stress. And of course, the students are already under stress that whether there will be proper evaluation or not, whether they will get their degree or not. And of course, from the academic side, we are also very stressed. Now, whether what will happen, since without students, without physical interaction with the students, we are also facing this particular psychological problem. The psychological problem is also with your family. Mostly, if I talk about the gender side, mostly women are facing a lot of psychological issues related to this particular coronavirus. See, this psychological impact will be there, of course, not only with you and me, of course, with the business person, with your own family members. Mostly, people talk about the gender side; they are the most vulnerable, and it is happening. And also after post-corona, also the psychological effect will be there. This because, as I said, this is a pandemic. This is not going to sort of we're not going to sort of it will die out easily. So of course, it will stay for at least let's say 1 decade or something like that. So you have to reduce this impact actually. How you can reduce it? You have to sort of increase your, as I said, you have to reactivate yourself. You have to increase your immunity. You have to sort of interact with persons, with your family members, with your teachers, if you are a student. So that means you have to sort of deal with all these problems. So psychological problem will be there, and this is occurring to everyone, not only you and me, but also to the. Let's see, if we'll talk about now in Bollywood, also people are having psychological issues. They are now committing suicides. So these issues are there. You have to talk. See, effective communication. That's what I said. During disaster time, you have to communicate effectively with your family members, with your boss, with your friends, with your relatives. Then you can easily, sort of get rid of all these problems. Question by this migrants issues. I think I have already discussed in my lecture regarding reverse migration. This reverse migrations, see, one should check it. As I said, most the people who are living in the cities like Bombay or Bangalore or in Chennai, why they are there? Because, as I said, three issues I have already highlighted. One is lack of decent job, lack of proper house, and poor sanitation. So if your density is very high, population density is very high, And if you are having, if you are not having a decent job, and if you are not having proper sanitation or house, then of course they are going to sort of affected much by this coronavirus. And once you travel from this place to your home or in your original sort of house, then again you are going to take this virus with you. So this is a problem, right? Migration is another issue, and as I said, the informal sector is actually already affected due to this coronavirus. People who are working on a daily wage basis, they have affected a lot due to this corona. They are not, they are completely unemployed. They are not getting even 100 rupees per day. So as I said, we have to again speed up this NRGS and all these activities just after this coronavirus to deal with this problem, actually informal sector problem. In crisis, we get news from various sources, but how to differentiate? As I said, I have already discussed regarding some of. You have to differentiate which are the fake news, which are the real news. As I at least said, you have to depend on the official, sort of notice or official letter or from the particular government, right? So these days we have also Twitter account of government of Odisha, West Bengal, government of Assam. We have to, they have their own Twitter account. So you have to follow their Twitter accounts, official accounts, to know exactly what is happening. And again, from the district office also you can get some news if you are if you can register yourself. So I used to get some official messages from IMD. I don't know, my number is already registered in those websites or something like that. I used to get some concrete news from this IMD and some regional offices. So as I said, you have to follow the official websites, official sort of letter and recommendation, not from the feints or the forward messages that you used to get in WhatsApp or in Facebook messengers. Last question is specifically talking about occurrence of flood repeatedly year after in Assam. Yes, what the technologies are doing, why they cannot find out a solution, what kind of research they are doing, why the government takes a decision, and what should be in it. As I said, this you have said that is a very important question. That Assam used to face flood every year, and the technology you are talking about, as I said, that if you are staying in a low region, low area, then when there is a flood, you are going to affect. Right. So that means the houses or the kind of construction of houses that you have done, it's basically very much lower compared to the sort of sea level or something like that. So then there is a problem. Again, as I said, the mechanism, what kind of mechanism they are going to do. Again, as I said, they have to at least not talk or discuss with the research people, the NGOs, the policymakers, that how to deal with this covariates of flood every year that Assam is facing. What kind of adaptation mechanism we must adopt, looking at the other states, looking at least Odisha or West Bengal, how they are managing all these problems. Basically, every year Odisha is facing problems. You can also take the model of Odisha disaster management that is there in the official website. So, of course, as I said, you have to take the help from policymakers, from the social scientists, from the bureaucrats, and from, of course, from the people itself. Right? So then you can sort of adopt in a better way. Of course, the agricultural scientists, if you are talking about the agriculture sector, you have to talk constantly with the agricultural scientists. And what are the climate resistant crops that you can cultivate in Assam to manage with these drought issues?
So I think Ashish, you have actually answered all the queries put by our participants, the audience. And I would like to thank you very much, not just for being present and taking time out of your busy schedule, but also for the fact that you have, put in the aspect a very relevant topic, because, it's not just India, or it's not just a particular state of India, but the entire globe is facing the challenge, an unprecedented challenge of dealing with any such climate-related disasters, natural or man-made, at the background of the pandemic. So remember, exactly after Umpun, there was some other cyclone on the western coast of India, that is in Bombay coast, and also in other, maybe in the Australian part of Indian Ocean. So this is very relevant, and it is actually maybe, I will not say whether it will be appropriate to say or not, but it is some sort of a divine, opportunity to, make us learn and unlearn. First to unlearn what we have been doing till now, and now to learn the new things from our experience. Because as you say, that adaptation is the best possible strategy, but we also need to have a long-term, strategy, long-term planning and patience. And first of all, the appetite to go for that rather than going for this mitigation. Mitigation can help us in a short term, but long run we have to be adapted. And I think, this COVID has taught us in a very big way that adaptation is a big answer. So this is a big debate which has been going on, and one of our, audience has actually put that thing before you, that which is a better strategy. So as we see now that adaptation definitely takes time, we have to hold a patience, but nonetheless it prepares us in a much better way for the future. So thank you once again, Ashish, for being present, and I hope that you have also enjoyed presenting with us and being with us, and we would definitely like to host you again in the future if we get the opportunity, and I hope that you will be definitely with us once again for presentation. So thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nilüfer, for giving me the opportunity to sort of interact with students, faculties, and obviously other researchers from across India and outside.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So I would like to thank also my audience, and please stay tuned for the next 3 days of lecture. We will be sharing the link with you by today evening. So one day before the lecture, we'll be sharing the link, and please stay tuned. And thank you once again for being present and for being, such a nice audience and being patient enough to listen to the lecture and presenting your queries. So thank you once again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ashish. And I would also like to bring forth my colleague, Jugal. Jugal has been very much, pivotal and very much instrumental in organizing this entire webinar with me. So he is my colleague. He is my younger brother to me, and he has been very much, active and very much, innovative and thoughtful. So today, that idea of presenting the questions before everyone, it actually came from Jugal, and it actually happened as we were presenting it. So I think that also made the job easy for Ashish and for all of us. So what type of questions are being put? So thank you once again, and see you tomorrow. Okay. So that's it. Thank you.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.